And we're live today. So today it is a special edition of Coffee and Real Estate with Cesar.
What's going on, mi gente?
All right, we're going to be busy tomorrow, so we're going to do a Friday or Thursday editions because we're busy tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to be extremely busy. I've got a training that I've got to go to, and Cesar has closing we have to go to.
Yes, but I also have my son's trichathon
at
school, so I want to make sure I'm able to make it. Yesenia's not able to make it. So one of us has to be there, and we try to be active in our kids' lives.
Yeah, definitely. That's one of the perks of being self-employed. You get to call your own, do your own schedule, so you get to enjoy those moments. All right, cool. So yeah, we're going to be definitely busy tomorrow, so we're not going to be able to do our coffee and real estate on our regular day. So, but today we're going to talk a little bit about what we were talking about last week, because we did have some questions regarding foreclosures. So we went over foreclosures last week. But first of all, let's talk about our coffee.
Okay, what do you got today?
So today, I think I probably need some more. Today's coffee is brought to you by the Keurig right here at our White Picket Realty offices. What about you? What are you drinking?
I think it's the same thing. Usually I grab something, but today I went with the Dixie Cup coffee from White Picket Realty off of the Keurig.
Ah, nice. So we do this in the mornings because it's coffee. Food in the evening will probably be cognac and...
Or whiskey
and real estate.
Yeah,
something like that. Whiskey and closings. All right. Hey, might be down. That might be our second show of the evening show. Yeah. All right. So, you all right?
Yeah, it was like a little a mosquito or something. I don't know.
Cool. So we were talking about foreclosures last week, and the question was asked: Is there a difference between a bank foreclosure and a tax sale foreclosure? Okay. And so you want to chime in on what the difference is?
Yeah. So I'd say quick answer is yes, there is. Overall, the difference between a bank foreclosure and a tax sale foreclosure, the bank foreclosure is going to be more when you default on your mortgage payment. So you have time frame of X amount of months, you've missed it, they've told you need to catch up, they file for foreclosure, and they send you to the auction. The tax foreclosure is going to be when you're delinquent on your taxes. So overall, it's the tax district that's foreclosing on the property, not because you missed your payments on the mortgage, but because you missed your tax payments overall. And one of the cool things to know is typically your bank is going to keep paying your taxes when you're missing your payments, because they don't want the county to foreclose on the property because of missed tax payments. So that's why your escrow is actually able to go into negatives, because the bank has technically they have second lien priority on your property behind the tax district.
So your bank is going to be paying those taxes even if you're not making payments to the bank.
Yes.
They can do it because they don't want to lose it to the bank, doesn't want to lose it to the government.
Yes, exactly. Okay. They want to keep that lien position, so they're going to keep paying the taxes on it as long as it makes sense and there's enough equity for them to keep paying.
So if you have a mortgage, it's 99% likely that you're going to get foreclosed on by the bank before you're going to get foreclosed on by the taxing entity.
Yes, okay. And most tax foreclosures are going to happen when the land or the home is already 100% paid off, or when somebody sold it owner finance to you and they're not in charge of paying the taxes. They left it up to you to pay the taxes, and those taxes are not included in the mortgage payment, and you miss those payments. Then that's usually when tax foreclosures are going to happen.
And tax foreclosure happens, but there's still an underlying mortgage on the property.
There is, but at the end of the day, that could get wiped out, because the tax authority has the first lien position, which is why usually the next lien position has the ability to catch those taxes up so that they remain in that priority of lien position.
Got it. Okay. And so some of the similarities between a tax sale and a foreclosure sale, some of the similarities is that kind of what we talked about last week, is you really don't have much due diligence beforehand. Unless you contact the owner beforehand, they allow you to do that. Now that's a slim chance. So you don't have the ability to go do the due diligence. So that's a similarity. The other similarity is that when you do a tax sale, and they take place on the same day, at least in Harris County, the tax sales, foreclosures, and the bank foreclosures take place the same day at the same venue. They are also cash only. You bring in cashier's checks for the amount that you want to bid on. All sales are final. You don't do any due diligence. So those are the similarities. But I think the similarities in there. And with tax sales, you do have to take into consideration some other risk factors as well. And mainly is the right of redemption.
Yep.
So the right of redemption is when, for example, if you're a homeowner and you have a homestead exemption on that home, and you go into tax foreclosure, and the property is sold, you have up to 2 years to redeem your rights of that property. What does that mean? Is that you have up to 2 years to pay the person who paid off your taxes, and of course with interest. So that is, you have 2 years to be able to do that if you filed for a homestead on that property. So the risk to the buyer of a tax foreclosure is if they've got a 2-year redemption period, they can buy that property back to you from you. And any improvements that you did, that's on you. They don't have to pay for your improvements. They only have to pay for the taxes that you paid and any interest that's allowed under that. But if you go in there and renovate the property, they don't have to, as long as they pay you. And so that's a risk when you buy in a tax foreclosure. Now, if you don't have a homestead exemption on that, then the right of redemption is only, how long is it?
If there's no homestead on it, don't quote me on this, but I want to say it's 6 months.
6 months.
Some people keep it up to a year just to be safe. But I want to say it's 6 months. It could have changed. But at the end of the day,
6 months.
6 months is what I'm going to say.
Yeah, 6 months. So that means that the worst case scenario is you can't resell that property within the 6 months or 2 years, depending if it's a homestead or a non-homestead. And so any repairs you do, anything else, you run the risk of not getting paid for that. And again, you can't sell that property for the 6 months or 2 years. So those are the risks that come along with buying a tax foreclosure versus if you buy in a bank auction where everything else is wiped out. By then, everything should be wiped out, clean, and then you can go ahead and do what you want. Put it up for sale almost immediately once you do the repairs. So those are the differences between a tax sale and a bank foreclosure.
Yep.
All right. And so, what else did you had something else?
I think just something to speak about a little bit. When people look into investing into tax foreclosures, there's two kind of cool things, but it's also a negative. The cool thing is they sell it as if you buy a tax foreclosure, or you're not buying the tax foreclosure, you're buying the lien. You're placing a lien on the property. You're pretty much paying the taxes, and you're placing a lien on it, and you're guaranteed an interest return. And a lot of times these companies that sell you on the trainings will tell you that you get 25% return on your money, and it draws you in, and it seems real interesting. And who wouldn't do that, right? 25% return on your money. You pay that money. You hold on to it for 2 years. If they don't redeem it, you pretty much can foreclose on the property. And if they redeem it, then you get your money back plus 25% per year. So at the end of the day, it's a win-win. But what they don't tell you is when you're bidding, it's a bidding process. So you can bid, and usually it's going to go to whoever's going to take the least amount of money in interest. So it could start at 25% interest, and you'll say, like, I'll take that deal. Then the next person will be like, I'll do it for 20%. And then the interest amount keeps going down. And sometimes you have these big hedge funds that'll do it for 1%.
Yeah, so your yield, as you're bidding up these tax sales, your yield is diminishing as you keep going up because the return is going to be less and less.
Yeah,
you are bound by the government how much interest you can charge on the taxes. So there's benefits to it. One is if you do buy it, there are disadvantages, but there are also benefits. What you're saying is there are benefits.
Yeah.
The benefit is that you don't have to do anything to the property. Your money's already earning interest.
No matter what. Yeah.
It's already
worst case,
interest.
you make interest.
You're making interest already. So you don't have to improve the property. You can leave it as is, but your money that you invested in buying that foreclosure or that tax sale, that tax certificate, whatever you want to call it, is already earning you interest without doing anything.
Yes.
So you're already making money that way. So, of course, everything has risks And so it depends on your risk tolerance if you which way you want to go to, whether you want to focus on a bank foreclosure or if you want to focus on a tax foreclosure. And all right, so good points. I mean, either way, it's a win-win for if you as long as you have a nice strategy in place, it's a win-win.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay, perfect.
Yeah, another cool thing that there is to know is lien priority, right? Lien priority usually goes back to where the order in which the liens were placed, right? So then you can refute it and people say, okay, but I didn't have a tax lien placed on it until this year. So then why does the tax lien take priority over all the rest of the liens? And what it does is whenever it's the tax district putting a lien on your property, it dates back to when that entity was established.
So when the county was established.
When the county was established. So therefore, nothing else was established before the county in that county. So therefore, that's why the county always has first priority lien, no matter when the tax lien was placed.
No matter when it was built, no matter what, is the taxing authority supersedes everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's interesting to know. So you know that a tax sale, that is the one that holds the first lien position, and hardly anything. I can't think of a scenario where it wouldn't. Probably not.
Federal lien, maybe federal tax lien versus a state tax lien.
That's true. If you owe the IRS some money, I guess that would be.
IRS actually does take, I think, priority over the tax lien in the county.
Maybe similar. Maybe because it's a federal versus a state.
Yeah, the federal government was established before the individual state government.
Got it.
Yeah,
okay.
Entity. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. And then you had an interesting. So you had an interesting morning because you were going to go see. You had a client talk to you about a piece of property they were going to go see, and tell us a little bit about how they were looking for a piece of property to build on.
So So what we're moving into now is we're talking about buying land to then construct on.
Yes.
So instead of new build, so there's new build where you purchase a home built by a developer, and then there's new build where you literally have the land or you buy the land, and then you construct on the property, and then you have your final mortgage and what that process looks like.
Okay.
Okay. So the way it typically breaks down is if you own the land, you can use that land as leverage to get a construction loan. All right. So then you get a construction loan to build out the property that you want to build out. And once that loan is once the construction is complete, then it's called a wrap, where they basically turn it into a regular mortgage payment.
Long-term, 30-year mortgage.
30-year mortgage payment.
Okay.
Now, if you don't own the land, typically the way it works is you buy a piece of land, which normally is going to cost about 20% down, right? And then they convert that with the construction loan. So it moves into a construction loan, which you typically have to have another 20% to put down because they're not going to count the land anymore because you don't own it 100%. And sometimes you have to assign that land over to the contractor that's going to build it because they need to have some kind of like, if I put money into this property, I need to make sure I get my money back if you don't pay me. So you go land loan, construction loan, and then once it's all said and done, then it wraps again into a 30-year traditional mortgage.
Okay. Now that's interesting. I actually have a client that's in the same way. We just went under contract this week with a 1-acre piece of property out in North Houston or Montgomery County. This is going to be north of Houston, so Montgomery County. We're going through the same process right now, and it's interesting because it's exciting that you get to choose. It's not something that you see yet. It's conceptual in nature, right? You just see a vacant piece of land, and you're imagining what can go on there. So it's different. It's exciting to see it. So I've learned a couple of things in this process, and my suggestion, I have 3 tips when you're going to go ahead and do that. One is talk to your loan officer. As you mentioned, there's probably more than 2 or 3 loan options available to you when buying land and construction. You can buy the land cash, like you're mentioning, or you can finance it in there. So talking to a loan officer and seeing what those options are for you, what that's going to cost you, what the overall cost of the project is going to be, and then you can move forward on which direction you're going to go. That's number 1. 2 is once you have that established, is going out and visiting the neighborhoods or where you're going to buy land. And I say this because it's extremely important where you're going to put that house. For example, you don't want to put a $500,000 house when you know that all the neighboring houses are worth $200,000, $150,000. What does that do? Is that affects your resale value or your equity value at the end. And so you have to recognize where you're going to build your house. And are there similar type homes in that neighborhood so that you can protect your equity at the end, protect your resale value. So that's number one, researching where you're going to build and are there similar homes there. And number three, you have to vet the builders. And if possible, can you visit completed job sites or works in progress so that you can see the craftsmanship? Perhaps you want a certain level of craftsmanship in your property. And so you want to be certain that they're up to the task to complete what your dream home is. And most of the time when people build, it's their dream house. It's their forever home. And you want to have someone pay attention to those details. So what last tips do you have when it comes to?
So I'll talk a little bit about the logistics of it, right?
Yeah.
So when you're looking to build from the ground up, right? If you don't do construction or you don't know a lot about construction or you've never managed a project, you definitely want to hire a developer or a builder, and you want to vet them because you can go with a builder that doesn't really know what they're doing. I've hired a builder before that they didn't know how the city of Houston ran, and long story short, I could have run the project a lot better than they could have and saved myself a lot of money and headache. But it was the first time I had ever thought about building ground up. And I thought bringing in a builder is going to help me not have to go through the headaches of learning. But I learned anyway.
Yeah.
and it was at my expense, right? So you want to make sure you don't try to take on a project because you feel like I do sheetrock, so I know about all these other trades, because running the project is a whole different beast, right? Yeah. Especially when you're running it from beginning to end. So definitely make sure that if you don't know what you're doing and you don't really do this for a living, hire a reputable builder that has a proven track record of building, especially in that area.
Especially in the area, so they know the zoning regulations or the building codes and all these things, right?
Yep.
Okay. And so one thing I might also add is that you mentioned city versus perhaps out in the country building. And so there goes a whole other set of logistics. Does that piece of property have utilities available? Does it have electricity available? Do you have to install a septic tank or build a well? Does it have access to gas, or will you have to bring in a propane tank?
Yeah.
So there's so many different things to talk about. I think at the end of the day, the best route to do is speaking with a knowledgeable realtor that has gone through the process because of clients and figuring out where is it you want to build and go through all the logistics of it and guide you to make sure that you make the right decision in choosing the lender, the piece of property, and the builder. So,
yeah. And man, there's so many tips you could give on this. So you can bring in an inspector to do a 3-phase inspection where they, throughout certain phases of the construction, they're going to go in and make sure things were done right. Because the city is horrible. The city is going to make sure it's up to their code, to their ordinance, to their standard. But sometimes you get an inspector in there that might be unfortunately on the payroll of the builder, that might slide on something or so. Yeah. We suspect, right? And they'll pass something. And then later on, the final inspection will happen and they'll come back and say, like, why was this even approved the first time? Redo it. And you can't really fight them because it's the city. And even though one inspector approved it, you now have to undo what they had approved and pay more money to fix, the issue. So hire an inspector separate from the city, not only to make sure things are getting done right, but so that you can hold the builder accountable and not pay them out their next draw until your inspector says this was done right. So
that is corrected and done. Then you can move on to the next process.
And you can move on to the next process.
As with anything else, when you bring in city inspectors, of course, it's human error. You never know what you're going to get, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And every inspector is a little different. Probably 2 more tips that I can give is make sure that you speak with the lender and with the contractor and make sure you understand how the finances are going to work. How much money are you going to need to buy this land, to fund a construction loan, and what is the builder going to ask you as far as a first initial fee to get started? Sometimes they ask you for X amount of dollars, 40,000 to get started, or they might ask you for a third of the entire project. You know, and you need to understand, is this coming out of my pocket, or did the loan I took out, did that loan give a draw that happens pre-construction that goes directly to the builder? So you need to understand how the money's working, because you could get stuck in a situation where you don't have enough cash to keep moving forward. Even though there might be cash in your escrow for building, you need to fund that out of pocket before you can request that money get delivered to you.
And all this, of course, is you've got to keep an accurate timeline. Mm-hmm. Is that, of course, any little hiccup, any little delay is going to put your timeline back. And like they say, time is money. So any delays is going to cost you more money than you actually anticipated before. So those delays are extremely detrimental. So make sure that you're staying on top of your timelines. Make sure that you know beforehand all what can go right and what can go wrong. All right. So that's a pretty good advice there. So for anybody who's doing it, it's still something that's available for anybody to go out there and do, because again, you get to customize your own home. So it's still an exciting process in following someone do it. So
yeah, and I would say if you're bold enough to take on the project management yourself, and like you're just stubborn and you're like, I could do this myself. A good tip to take is you're going to have to turn in a budget to the lender, right? It's going to say how much is every phase of what you're doing going to cost. So you want to be front end heavy, in my experience. So if you think the foundation is going to really cost $12,000, it's probably not. Put in the budget that's going to cost 20, because then as soon as it's done, obviously you don't want to go crazy. They're not going to say 100,000 for a foundation, right? You want to make it believable and realistic, because then if you get it done for 12 and you do the draw, the lender's going to give you what you put into the budget. So instead of giving you 12, they're going to release 20 for the foundation. Now you have that $8,000 to keep the project moving forward without having to come out of pocket to keep the project moving forward. Okay. So be front end heavy as far as like overestimating costs, so that you don't run into an issue where it costs you more to do that job than what you put on the budget, and now you have to pocket the difference just to keep it moving forward, because they're only going to give you what you put on that sheet unless you request a variance, which takes time. They're going to normally give you just the 12 instead of what it actually cost you. Okay.
Well, Cesar has actually gone through the experience himself once or twice. And so if you're a do-it-yourselfer, definitely reach out to Cesar. And if you're like myself, who said, hey, I'm going to go ahead and vet out the best builder out there so that I have the least amount of headaches. But it's also a very fun process. And I think, when we're talking about this, we can go a million ways, but it's an extremely fun process as you see the project go up. So, but again, if you're a do-it-yourselfer, contact Cesar. If you want to know all the builders and the process, let me know. We're here to help you out. But definitely, as always, what did you guys think about the tax sale foreclosures or bank foreclosures? Or what do you guys think about building on your own lot? Are you guys interested in building on your own lot? Let us know if you have any questions. We'll be happy to revisit this on next week, and we'll go from there. But for now, guys, thanks for watching.
Take care. We'll see you next week.
All right, guys.